a series to help Malaysians make better decisions. A political leader who changes his political face more often than the world-famous Sichuan face-changing opera. Is it that his economic track record, his economic performance is so lousy, it's so bad? A failure? If it failed, that also failed.
You want to make the same mistake 2 times and destroy Malaysia's industrialization 2 times? My God, when are Malaysians going to wake up? Hi guys. Well, the last time when we talked at the hopeless look east policy of Malaysia's 4th Prime Minister, how it failed. Now, if you don't want to take my word for it, because you think I'm biased and so on, get the book by this guy called Kaminder Singh, K-A-R-M-I-N-D-E-R, Kaminder Singh. He used to be a senior officer at Malaysia's Defence Ministry. So he wrote this book called Malaysian Foreign Policy in the Mahathir era, 1981 to 2003, Dilemmas of Development. It's not an easy book to get, but try, because a lot of things inside there he shared with us how it was like when he was working in MINDEF. Let me just give you a quotation, right? Looking at the poor design of the look east policy, it was not surprising that there were many things wrong with this policy. Malaysia's trade deficit with Japan had widened sharply. Japanese non-tariff barriers against Malaysian manufacturers existed. There was a slow rate of technology transfer from Japan and a practice of transfer pricing by Japanese corporations to avert Malaysian taxation. Japanese companies were slow to invest in skill-intensive industries in Malaysia. There was a reluctance to establish research and development facilities, and the Japanese companies bypassed Malaysian contractors and suppliers to acquire components, materials, and services direct from Japan. Think of how Proton failed, how Proton struggled to succeed. The Japanese companies employed more expatriate managers and staff than most other foreign companies, locking Malaysians out of decision-making functions and inhibiting their career development. Japan was reluctant to use more Malaysian vessels for bilateral trade. Malaysia in 1984 suffered a current account deficit with Japan of 2.7 billion US dollars. That is in 1984. That is how the look east policy of Malaysia's Prime Minister had failed, and failed miserably at a huge cost to the Malaysian economy. So, like I said, if you don't trust what I say, if you don't believe me, just get the book by Kaminder Singh, and read it for yourself. I'm not inventing all those conclusions. It came from an officer who was a senior person in Malaysia's Defence Ministry. So, okay, we are talking about the lousy economic performance of Malaysia's 4th Prime Minister, right? And then this part I'm going to share with you how Malaysia's 4th Prime Minister destroyed Malaysia's industrialization policy. Malaysians, ordinary Malaysians, millions of Malaysians don't bother to read history, don't bother to check historical facts. So they have this very mistaken impression that industrialization came to Malaysia only when the 4th Prime Minister came in. This is completely wrong. This is a narrative, a false narrative that has been pushed down to ordinary Malaysians, and Malaysians have been brainwashed by this propaganda because the facts say otherwise. right? The early days of Malaysia's industrialization were already successful. It started way back in the 60s during Tunku Abdul Rahman's time. Now, if you measure industrialization, you look at manufacturing sector as a share of the Malaysian economy in percentage terms. In 1960, it was below 10%. And don't forget, Malaysia was just 2-3 years after gaining its independence, right? It was about 9%. By 1981-82, before the fourth Prime Minister came in, the manufacturing share of Malaysia's economy was close to 20%. So in that 20-odd years, manufacturing share improved by about 10 percentage points. During this 22 years of its lousy economic management, Malaysia's manufacturing sector also improved by about 10 percentage points. So what is so great about Malaysia's fourth Prime Minister? And if you look at it, under people like Tunku Abdul Rahman, Tan Siew Sin, and a person that most of you are not familiar with, Lim Swee Yan. Lim Swee Yan was Malaysia's Minister of Commerce and Industry. That was when Malaysia's journey of industrialization started. That was when Petaling Jaya was full of jungle, and the forest had to be cleared. I was there in Petaling Jaya in 1961. I saw the beginning of Petaling Jaya as a new growth source for Malaysia. And that was when we started with import substitution, meaning that instead of importing clothes, tires, milk, food products, Malaysia started to make it within Malaysia itself. So you have your Dutch Lady, you have your Dunlop tires, you have your Dragon and Phoenix or DNP that make textiles. So those were the early days. Now don't forget, in the 60s and the 70s, Malaysia faced a lot of crises. If you think that, that fourth Prime Minister will say that, I have George Soros to deal with and so on and so on, what's the big deal? In the 60s, Malaysia had to deal with a sterling crisis. The sterling, because the Great Britain was really becoming small at that time. Sterling was facing a lot of crises. Britain was withdrawing east of Suez. They were withdrawing all their military forces east of Suez. The naval base in Singapore was being closed down. Malaysia had a confrontation, a military conflict with Indonesia. There was the US dollar crisis. Bretton Woods broke up. US departed from the gold standard. There was the oil crisis in the early 1970s. So there was crisis after crisis after crisis. And Malaysia's industrialization was successful. That was the beginning. Now, the real foundation, if you look at it now, in 2023, I mentioned to you the fourth Prime Minister White Elephant projects, right? The Pewaja Steel, the Highcom, the Ronong, the Kedah Cement, all of which have ceased to exist. Proton nearly went bust until Geely came in to rescue, right? So if you look at that, obviously all the industrialization projects and policies that the fourth Prime Minister did, none of them survived, let alone prospered and benefited the economy. What is benefiting the Malaysian economy, Malaysia's industrialization? Basically, it is the electrical and electronics industry, the E&E. But within the E&E, the one industry that has made Malaysia a successful industrializer is the semiconductor industry, the semiconductor sector. If you look at the E&E, our aircon, our white goods and so on and so forth, we have fallen behind. But it is the semiconductor industry in Malaysia that is still not only competitive, it is surviving, it is growing very well. Infineon, which is a global semiconductor company, just announced a major investment in their Malaysian semiconductor operation. So if you look at it, the real foundation, the real success of Malaysia's industrialization policy is traced back to semiconductor. Now, who is responsible for semiconductor success in Malaysia? not the fourth Prime Minister. As usual, I call him the, Joseph Schumpeter, the famous classical economist, coined the term creative destruction. Creative destruction is a process in capitalism where you destroy something go bankrupt, and then you create something new, something more productive. Right? That's creative destruction. The fourth Prime Minister of Malaysia is the opposite. Everything he creates, he destroys. He's the destructive creator. Industrialisation of Malaysia was wrecked by him. He has nothing to do with semiconductor. Silterra, and there's another wafer fab that he wanted to create under his time. Both of them failed. Mimos, none of you are familiar with it, right? Because it hasn't gone anywhere. So, who is the person, who is the one single person that has laid the foundation, laid the path, the journey for Malaysia's semiconductor success? I think most of you haven't heard of this guy. Lim Chong Yew, Dr. Lim Chong Yew. He was the Chief Minister of Penang from 1969 to 1990. Right? Like I said, Malaysians, like people everywhere in the world, don't bother with history, don't bother with facts. They love the hearsay, they love the rumors, and then get brainwashed so easily. Now, what did Lim Chong Yew do? He convinced what is known as the Eight Samurais. The Eight Samurais refer to Clarion, AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, the one that Lisa Su is CEO of, Texas Instrument, Agilent, which used to be Hewlett Packard, Osram, Renesas, Intel Malaysia, and Bosch. These are the Eight Samurais. They were the first foreign E&E companies to set up production facilities in Malaysia, specifically in Penang. Let me just read you a quote from a World Bank report about this industry in Malaysia. Attracting the first set of foreign investors, the Eight Samurais, encouraged other investors to follow and proved to be the starting point for development of an E&E cluster. According to a former MNC executive interviewed for this World Bank report, the Eight Samurai coming to Malaysia proved to be the tipping point for more investors to follow in due course. From the same report, according to a former executive of the Eight Samurai, he said the government had been doing a remarkable job in supporting foreign investors. Every little problem was sought to be immediately resolved, and the government did not only have an open ear, but actively visited foreign investors to hear about their problems. What is this government? Every Thursday at 7 p.m. at night, Chief Minister Lim Chong Yew met with CEOs of the MNC to discuss and solve their most recent problems, their most recent issue. Lim Chong Yew. Again, according to the report, according to an industry, veteran of the industry, the Intel CEO, Andy Grove at that time, visited Penang and was trying to make a decision whether to invest in Malaysia or not, right? And Andy Grove was having a meal in a Chinese restaurant in Penang. Andy Grove saw a 5% service charge and was very impressed when he saw that the waiter could calculate the service charge in a matter of seconds without a calculator. That's Andy Grove back in the 60s, right? So that was what encouraged people like Intel to set up their first production facility outside America in Penang in Malaysia. With regard to investment promotion, a clear value proposition, persistence in the form of multiple visits to certain investors, and high-level government support from Dr. Lim Chong Yew was seen as particularly convincing. That is the success of Malaysia's industrialization, the semiconductor industry, where you have Malaysia's exports now are driven by semiconductor sales. Semiconductor sales go up globally, Malaysia's exports go up. Semiconductor sales go down, Malaysia's exports will go down. It's no longer palm oil, it's no longer textiles, it's no longer air condition and so on and so forth. It's semiconductor. Our so-called fourth premises industrialization policy has not produced a single success in terms of export. And without export success, Malaysia's industrialization cannot succeed. Because Malaysia's domestic market is too small, you need to be able to tap on to global demand. So, like I said, the fourth or the seventh Prime Minister had little to do with the success of Malaysia's semiconductor industry, right? Which is the foundation of Malaysia's successful industrialization. And yet, millions of Malaysians are conned by this false narrative that he's the father of Malaysia's industrialization. Come on, get your facts correct. Give credit where it's due. Right? I mean, Lim Chuan is dead. He's died a long time ago. But look, this poor guy deserved a lot more because he put his heart and soul to make sure that the semiconductor industry stayed in Penang, came to Penang, stayed in Penang, and succeeded and grew in Penang. And we, meaning Malaysians, are seeing the results of his hard work and hard work. Hard work, H-A-R-D, and hard work, H-E-A-R-T. That's what made Malaysia successful. So, I guess, what the fourth Prime Minister has done for us is this. He has wrecked Malaysia's industrialization, and not only that, he has condemned the country to be caught in a middle income trap. Because remember, I told you my first part, that Malaysia's GDP under his rule grew rapidly only about 6 odd years. 1990, 1991 to 1996, 97. That period, that's it. And because he was, I'm not sure you call him, so full of himself, wanted to grow rapidly, ignore all the warning signs. Even iCapital, our weekly newsletter, had written as far back as 1994 that there were already many warning signs that Malaysia's economy was overheating. And he ignored all of them. So what he did was kept on putting in all kinds of white elephant investments. That attracted a lot of foreign workers. That was the first time that foreign workers all came in. Low skill, low wage foreign workers, which we are still trapped in. That is middle income trap. Well, I said enough. I guess the facts prove one simple point, that in the coming state elections, if you guys are going to listen to him, that's your business. I'm just presenting you the facts, the conclusions, and the consequences that Malaysia has to suffer from his lousy policies, lousy economic performance. I hope you enjoy what I've said, and more importantly, I hope you have learned something that you will not be able to find anywhere else in Malaysia. Thank you.